We are taught to help everyone. But is it truly compassionate to keep giving to those who only take? Have you ever wondered if your kindness might be causing more harm than good? In this life, kindness is often praised as the highest virtue. We are told to give without question, to serve without hesitation, to love without limits. But wisdom, especially the wisdom of the Buddha, teaches us that true compassion is never blind. Helping someone is not always the right choice. Giving endlessly can become a silent poison, one that feeds entitlement, deepens ignorance, and quietly destroys both the giver and the receiver. In this video, we explore a truth rarely spoken. There are people you should not help, not because you lack compassion, but because your compassion must be guided by discernment. Welcome to Stillness Unfolded, a space where ancient Buddhist teachings come to life with clarity, reflection, and peace. If you find yourself drawn to quiet wisdom and thoughtful truths, you're in the right place. If you value these insights, please consider subscribing to our channel, giving this video a like, and joining the conversation in the comments. Let us grow this space of mindfulness together. Now, let us walk gently into this reflection and discover the 5 types of people you should not help and why choosing not to help may sometimes be the greatest help of all. Section 1. The Ungrateful Receiver. In a quiet village at the base of the mountains, there lived a monk known for his endless generosity. Travelers came and went, and he always opened his temple doors, offering shelter, warm soup, and a place to rest. Among the many who visited was a man who looked weathered by hardship. His clothes were torn, his eyes hollow. Without hesitation, the monk welcomed him. At first, the man accepted the hospitality with silence. He ate, slept, and bathed in kindness. But as the days passed, his silence turned into complaints. "This soup is too plain," he muttered one morning. "The bedding is thin," he scoffed at night. "Is this all you can offer?" he demanded. The monk observed quietly. When asked if he felt grateful, the man replied with a smirk, "Isn't it your duty to serve? Why should I be thankful for what you're supposed to give?" And in that moment, the monk saw a truth not in the man's words, but in his heart. Where gratitude dies, entitlement grows. This wasn't just a guest with high expectations. It was someone who had forgotten the sacredness of receiving. He believed that kindness was owed to him, not offered from compassion. In Buddhist practice, gratitude, katanuta, is not a formality. It is a state of mind that opens the heart to wisdom. Without it, even the purest act of giving becomes twisted in the receiver's perception. What was once a gift becomes an obligation. What began as service becomes servitude. To give without discernment is to feed weeds with sunlight and expect flowers. A heart closed to gratitude cannot receive truth. Like a cracked bowl, no matter how much water you pour in, it cannot hold nourishment. The contents seep away, wasted, not because the water was impure, but because the vessel was unready. In the West, people often equate kindness with infinite giving. In Buddhist teachings, however, the emphasis is not just on giving, but on right giving. This means offering help only when it serves a higher purpose, growth, healing, awakening. Helping someone who refuses to see value in your kindness is like giving incense to the wind. There is no altar to catch the offering. When a person expects generosity without appreciation, they are not just ungrateful. They are disconnected from the sacred balance between giving and receiving. And worse, they are learning to consume kindness as if it were currency, something to be demanded, not something to be cherished. This kind of dynamic slowly drains both parties. The giver begins to feel unseen, unvalued, and eventually resentful. The receiver becomes dependent, arrogant, and dismissive. The relationship sours, not because of lack of love, but because of lack of respect. In such moments, the monk must ask, is my kindness healing or enabling? True generosity includes boundaries, not as a wall to withhold love, but as a fence to protect its purpose. Just as a garden is fenced not to deny the earth, but to keep it fertile, our compassion must be guarded from those who exploit it. This does not mean we become cold. It means we give with eyes open and heart clear. Gratitude is what transforms giving into connection. A warm meal becomes sacred when received with a bowed head. A blanket becomes more than cloth when it is appreciated as comfort. A word of encouragement becomes a prayer when it's taken into the heart. Without gratitude, all things become mechanical. Even love can begin to feel like a transaction. Even presence can feel like debt. So ask not only, can I help? But also, is this person able to receive with reverence? If not, your withdrawal is not cruelty, it is wisdom. Sometimes, the lesson they need is not another act of kindness, but the absence of it. Because only then might they remember what a blessing it truly was. Section 2. The one who refuses to change. Not every person who suffers is ready to heal. In the hills of the eastern provinces, there lived a revered teacher. Known for his stillness and deep insight, seekers came from afar to learn from him. One day, a young man arrived, carrying a sorrow that seemed to drip from his every word. I've ruined my relationships, he confessed. My anger pushes people away. My lies make others mistrust me. I want peace. The teacher welcomed him without judgment and began guiding him through mindfulness, silent mornings, breath work, chanting, and ethical living. The man listened, but didn't change. He would return each week, weeping the same regrets. I failed again, he'd say. I got angry. I lied again. I gave in to my desires. And each time, the master offered new guidance. Always gentle, always clear. Weeks became months. The pattern never broke. One morning, the teacher placed a cup before him. It was filled with murky, brown water. Drink, he said. The man recoiled. It's filthy. The teacher nodded. Yes, yet every time I offer you clear water, wisdom, you pour it into a mind still full of toxins. And then you wonder why it remains unclean. Silence filled the room. It was not a lesson in shame, but in awareness. For even the purest teaching cannot cleanse a vessel that refuses to be emptied. This parable speaks deeply to a Buddhist truth. Suffering is not always an invitation for help. Sometimes, it's a holding pattern, a comfort zone cloaked in misery. Many say they want to change, but what they seek is relief, not responsibility. True transformation requires effort, humility, and a willingness to let go of familiar dysfunctions. It's not enough to cry over mistakes. One must release the identity that keeps making them. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, though one may recite much of the sacred texts, if he does not act accordingly, that heedless man is like a cowherd counting the cattle of others. He does not partake of the blessings of the holy life. Knowledge without application is spiritual stagnation. And aiding someone who refuses to evolve is not compassion, it is quiet sabotage. You may feel noble offering advice, comfort, or repeated rescue. But if the person you help does not shift their actions, you're watering a plant that has no intention of growing. Worse yet, your help may become a crutch, an excuse they use to avoid real effort. They may tell themselves, why try when someone else will lift me again? It's a hard truth, but a necessary one. Not everyone is ready to receive transformation. As a healer, teacher, or friend, your role is not to drag someone down the path. It is to walk beside those who choose to walk it for themselves. This doesn't mean you turn your back on the struggling. It means you observe carefully. Is this suffering a sign of awakening, or is it a mask for avoidance? If it is the latter, then your energy is best reserved. Because offering light to someone who closes their eyes only dims your own flame. In Buddhist practice, we are taught to release attachment to outcomes. That includes the outcome of someone else's healing. Let them come when they are truly ready. Until then, offer prayers, not solutions. Offer space, not constant rescue. For change is not a gift you can give someone. It is a path they must choose to walk. Section 3. The one who uses help to harm. Not all who seek wisdom do so for peace. In a valley temple known for its teachings of strategy and mindfulness, there arrived a man with sharp eyes and sharper questions. He was eager, too eager. Teach me discipline, he said. Teach me focus. I want to master myself. The monks, sensing his hunger for knowledge, welcomed him. They taught him breathing techniques to calm the mind, koans to sharpen insight, and lessons in patience, timing, and restraint. He learned quickly, but something felt off. While others practiced in silence, he whispered to himself as though rehearsing lines for some unseen performance. When he sparred, he didn't seek balance, he sought dominance. One evening, a monk overheard him in the courtyard, boasting to another traveler. These monks don't realize, they're making me stronger. But I don't intend to protect with what I learn. I intend to win. The next morning, the head teacher approached him. What is your purpose in learning? He asked. "To become powerful," the man answered. "To bend others to my will." The teacher bowed slowly. "Then your time here is over." And just like that, the gates were closed to him. This may seem harsh, but it is rooted in a profound truth. Knowledge, compassion, and aid are not inherently good. They are neutral tools. In the wrong hands, they become dangerous. To empower someone without understanding their heart is to risk arming the very forces you seek to neutralize. A sword is not evil, but in the hands of a cruel man, it cuts indiscriminately. Wealth is not poison, but in the hands of the greedy, it becomes a source of exploitation. Wisdom is not always a blessing, but in the hands of the manipulative, it becomes a mask for control. In Buddhist ethics, the intention behind action is central, and intention, unlike appearance, cannot be faked for long. It reveals itself through behavior, through what one does when no one watches. Helping someone who secretly seeks to dominate, manipulate, or harm others through the gifts you offer is not compassion. It is complicity. We often think of generosity as a one-size-fits-all virtue, but the Buddha never taught blind giving. He taught right action, which includes discerning when to give, how to give, and, most importantly, to whom. In some cases, refusal is the greatest kindness. It protects not just yourself, but others who might suffer at the hands of the empowered wrongdoer. It's easy to be deceived by charisma, by ambition cloaked in politeness. But watch closely. Real students ask how to heal themselves. Opportunists ask how to gain advantage over others. And there is a vast difference. If you give tools to someone whose heart is not yet cleansed of pride, vengeance, or greed, those tools become weapons. Helping must never become fueling. Consider this. If a man learns persuasive speech not to bring peace, but to manipulate, if he gains influence not to uplift, but to control, if he learns patience only to strike when others lower their guard, then what you've given him is not a gift, it's a loaded arrow. Buddhist compassion walks hand in hand with mindful restraint, not to withhold from the worthy, but to guard the teachings from those who would use them as weapons. This doesn't mean we judge people forever by their past, but it does mean we must see their intention in the present. Is their motivation rooted in healing or harm, service or self-glory? Sometimes the kindest act is not to share what you know, but to preserve it until the right soul comes to receive it. Just as a healer would never hand medicine to one who would poison others with it, the wise must not place power in the hands of the destructive. Protect the Dharma not just by teaching it, but by guarding its purpose. Section 4. The one who disrespects the hand that helps. Kindness offered without respect becomes invisible, and eventually, it becomes abused. There once was a skilled artisan, a quiet man who owned a humble shop in a busy village. He had no children of his own, so when he found a young orphan begging on the streets, he took the boy in. He gave him a bed, warm meals, and more importantly, he taught him a craft. Day by day, the boy learned to carve wood, to balance a chisel, to read the grain. The artisan was patient, proud even, as he watched the child grow into a capable young man. But time did something strange. The boy began to feel entitled to the life he had been given. He stopped expressing thanks. He started cutting corners in his work. He mocked the old man's methods, calling them outdated. Eventually, he demanded full ownership of the shop, claiming it was his right after all these years. The artisan, with sadness in his eyes, asked him, "If I plant a tree and care for it from seedling to shade, should it repay me with shelter or thorns?" The boy laughed. "You chose to plant it. It owes you nothing." And so, the artisan walked away. He closed the shop, took his tools, and left. Within months, the boy lost everything. Clients disappeared, tools dulled, and those who had once respected him turned cold. Without the root of humility, his tree bore no fruit. This story isn't just a fable. It reflects a common, painful truth. When kindness is met with arrogance, it ceases to be a blessing and becomes a burden. In Buddhist teachings, the virtue of respect, gaurava, is essential. It is the soil in which gratitude grows. Without it, even the noblest generosity is wasted. Many people begin with appreciation, but lose it as comfort becomes routine. They forget that what they now enjoy was once an unearned gift. And instead of honoring the source, they demand more, believing it is owed. Helping someone who disrespects your time, energy, or effort is like building a home on sand. No matter how strong the walls, it will collapse. Worse still, by continuing to give in such situations, you unintentionally teach them that respect is optional and that your generosity is unconditional, even in the face of mockery. Let's be clear, true compassion does not mean tolerating mistreatment. You can love someone and still walk away when they dishonor the very love you offer. In fact, walking away may be the most compassionate thing you can do, both for them and for yourself. Why? Because sometimes, loss is the only teacher left. When a person loses what they have taken for granted, it opens the door to awareness. Just as the young man in the story only understood the value of the artisan's guidance after it was gone, many must face the consequences of their disrespect to realize what they have lost. The Buddha once said, "Just as a flower does not pick and choose the bees that come, so too should we give without attachment, but not without wisdom." There is a balance here. You can be kind without being naive. You can give without becoming a servant to someone's entitlement. Kindness is not a license for others to mistreat you. Your role is not to endlessly pour into vessels that mock your effort. It is to recognize when your presence is no longer seen as a gift, but as a given. And in that moment, your withdrawal becomes a sacred act. You do not need to punish. You do not need to argue. Simply leave. Let your absence become the lesson your presence could not teach. For some, respect only blooms after the garden has withered. Section 5. The one who seeks help, but never strengthens. True compassion lifts, but it does not carry forever. In the shadow of an ancient monastery, a familiar figure could be seen each morning, an old beggar sitting quietly by the gates. Robed monks passed him daily, placing food, coins, and kind words into his bowl. He always accepted, always bowed politely, and always stayed in the same spot. Days became months. Months became years. One morning, a young monk, new to the monastery, asked the elder, "Why does this man never move? We feed him, care for him, even offer him shelter, yet he remains the same." The elder monk nodded gently and said, "Come." He walked the young disciple to the beggar and offered a new robe, better than the tattered one he wore. The beggar refused. "Why should I bother changing? This one still covers me." Then he was offered a room inside, warm and clean. "Why leave this spot?" he asked. "Here, the kindness comes to me." The young monk was confused. The elder smiled with sorrow and said, "Do you see? We have not helped him. We have only made his chains more comfortable." The next day, the offering stopped. The monks passed in silence. At first, the beggar cursed their coldness. Then, his stomach reminded him of his own powerlessness. Hunger stirred movement. Days later, he was seen in the forest gathering wood. A week later, he traded bundles for rice. A month later, he built a hut with his own hands. He no longer sat at the gate. This is the paradox of overhelping. When we give endlessly without asking for growth, we create dependence, not liberation. In Buddhist philosophy, compassion is never about enabling weakness. It is about encouraging strength. It is about recognizing that within every being lies the potential for awakening. But that awakening must be chosen, not spoon-fed. The Buddha himself never forced the Dharma onto anyone. He offered it to those who sought it, who were willing to walk the Eightfold Path. He gave tools, not crutches. Some people do not wish to grow. They seek perpetual comfort, even if that comfort is rooted in helplessness. They hide behind phrases like, "I can't," or "it's too hard," and expect others to do the heavy lifting of their lives. Helping such individuals feels good at first. It strokes the ego to be needed. But over time, it becomes clear, you are not uplifting them. You are anchoring yourself to their stagnation. The Dalai Lama once said, "True compassion is not just about giving, but about guiding someone to discover their own strength." When we constantly rescue someone from struggle, we rob them of the opportunity to realize their resilience. And make no mistake, struggle is a powerful teacher. Without it, muscles don't grow. Without friction, the sword is never sharpened. There is a reason the Buddhist path includes right effort. Even spiritual liberation requires discipline, action, courage. Nothing grows in perpetual comfort. Imagine a bird too afraid to leave the nest. If you keep feeding it there, it never learns to fly. Its wings atrophy. Its instincts dull. It becomes dependent on a life never meant for it. So too, are those who are helped beyond the point of usefulness. Kindness must be empowering. When it becomes a habit of overgiving, we must pause. Ask ourselves, am I truly helping this person? Or am I avoiding the discomfort of watching them fall, so I catch them before they can rise? There is no virtue in creating weakness in the name of love. Real love says, I believe in your ability to rise. Even if you fall, even if you curse me at first, I will not deny you the dignity of growth. Withdrawal is not abandonment. It is an act of faith in someone's inner strength. To help wisely is to know when to say, I will walk beside you, but I will not carry you forever. That is the power of awakened compassion. There is a time to give and a time to let go. True compassion is not measured by how much we give, but by how wisely we give it. Some people will take your love and grow. Others will take it and turn away. And some will never even notice the hand you've extended. That is not your failure. In the stillness of understanding, we come to see. Helping does not always mean healing. Sometimes, stepping back is the highest form of grace. So as you move through your life, ask not only can I help, but should I? Because wisdom, not impulse, is the path to true compassion. Thank you for walking with us today on Stillness Unfolded. If this message touched something in your heart, we invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What have you learned about the boundaries of kindness? Until next time, may your heart stay soft, your mind stay clear, and your compassion always be guided by wisdom. Be well, be still, and unfold.